Namaskar. This is David Hawthorne at astroview.com. Today is the 2nd of November, 2023. So a few days ago, we lost a very respected and well-known actor in the United States by the name of Matthew Perry, who was born on the 19th of August, 1969, at 4:47 a.m. in North Adams, Massachusetts. So I wanted to do a systems approach to Vedic astrology analysis of his Vedic astrology horoscope. I'm not going to go into all the details over here, but we can talk about a few of the main points. So here in USA, we knew him as an actor on a television sitcom called Friends that had tremendous success from 1994 to 2004, 20 years. He also won some other Emmys and for other performances over the years, but he did have very severe addictions to drugs and to alcohol. He did also try to become an advocate for rehabilitation. In terms of his personal life, his parents were separated when he was only 1 year old, and he was in trouble by the time he was 10 and 14. Apparently, he had a fight with Canadian Prime Minister Justin Trudeau when they were kids. But he was drinking by the time he was 14. His mother finally sent him from Canada to go live with his father in Southern California. So that's where he got into acting when he was about 15 or 18 or something like that. So the television show was very successful. In fact, he and his co-stars were all earning $1 million per episode. So they became quite wealthy, very young, I would say. He was both Canadian and American citizenships. Notice he dated some very beautiful women like Julia Roberts, but there's no marriage here, no children in this chart. We'll talk about that. He had a lot of property. He owned a condo in Sierra Towers, a house in Hollywood Hills, house in Malibu, cottage Pacific Palisades, a condo on top floor of the Century, which is a famous building in Los Angeles. Paid $20 million for it. He was addicted to drugs after medical drugs, I guess, a jet ski accident in 1997. In and out of rehabs, I think maybe 15 times or something. In 2018, spent time in hospital. Colon burst, opioid abuse. So he's had one of these high-low lives where everything came to him early, but also went up in smoke. So you can read about all this stuff. It's on Wikipedia, of course, all his personal life stuff. And then a few days ago, he was found unresponsive in his hot tub. They haven't quite identified yet what his problem was. I suspect he had a heart attack in the hot tub, but it could have been drug-related as well. But let's take a look now at his life situation. Now, I am using the systems approach to Vedic astrology paradigm, which is being used by hundreds of astrologers worldwide because it's very scientific, very accurate, very practical. So if we just take a look at the horoscope itself, in the first house we have the fourth sign ascending or rising at 17 degrees Cancer. This is a water sign, a movable sign, and a royal sign. Only two royal signs, Cancer and Leo, ruled by the moon and the sun. Typically, Cancer and Leo persons are very aristocratic, very intelligent, very creative. Cancer rising sign persons are extremely creative. Now, we do say that for the Cancer rising sign person, there are 5 planets that will never cause harm, but they can and should be strengthened to add protective covering to life. These include Sun, ruling the second house of wealth and status, speech and family life. Of course, Chandra, moon, will never cause harm. Moon rules the chart, his name, fame, health, appearance, personality, reputation, longevity. Notice that moon is waxing, it's pulling away from the sun. It's 3 houses from the sun. So we would say 28, 58, and 14, about 72 degrees from the sun. So it's a waxing moon, that's always considered favorable. Mars will never cause harm. There is no Kuja dosha or Mangalic dosha because Mars rules the 10th house of Kendra. 10th house is the house of karma, career, professional life. And it's actually placed in a trine in the 5th house in its own sign of Scorpio. So for Cancer rising sign, we say Mars becomes known as Raj Yoga Karaka. It's a kingly or royal yoga. Of course, Mars rules property, and it's in the 5th house of investments. Mercury will never cause harm because Mercury rules the 3rd house of self-initiatives and self-efforts and independent entrepreneurial ventures, communications. And Shukra, Venus, will never cause harm. Venus rules the 4th house, childhood, parents, property, fixed assets, domestic peace. So Surya, Bud, Chandra, Mangal, and Shukra, Sun, Mercury, Moon, Mars, and Venus are the 5 favorable planets. We call them functional benefic planets. Interestingly, for Cancer rising, these are the 5 fastest moving planets in the zodiac. So they're constantly going through the zodiac quickly, and they bring many lightweight, short-lived, happy events into life, thus keeping him buoyant. However, in addition, Rahu and Ketu for every chart are functional malefic planets. They do cause the eclipse of the sun and the moon every year since the beginning of time, so they have to be managed. Oh, they bring darkness into our lives. Nobody escapes. Sooner or later, Rahu brings trouble. You can see he's in the Rahu subperiod. Currently, at the time of death, November 2021 till June 2024, he's in Rahu. So that certainly brought some eclipse. But in addition to Rahu and Ketu causing trouble, and in this case, they both cause trouble to Mercury. Look at this. This is 26 degrees. You can round it off to 28. But that's still a good, powerful 60% affliction to Mercury. So this causes highs and lows. This is desires. This is non-desires. Material life versus spiritual life. I want, I don't want. And Mercury, of course, is the intellect, the mind. It rules communications. So this really causes trouble, mental trouble taking decisions, keeping decisions. So we would have advised that he do everything possible to strengthen that Mercury. We would have said wear an emerald gemstone. And of course, we would have said wear the mystical pendant, the Kavach, to strengthen all 5 of his favorable planets. Now, under systems approach, we say that the Mool Trikone signs take precedence. Those of you who are studying astrology know that every planet has an exaltation sign. Sun, for example, is exalted in Aries. but every planet has a debilitation sign. So Sun would be debilitated in Libra. But every planet also has a Mul Trikona sign. In fact, Sage Parashara in the Brihat Parashara, Horashastra, says Grahas rule two bhavas, planets rule two houses. Mul Trikona sign takes precedence. So most Jyotishis were not aware of how to apply that. And Professor B.K. Chowdhury, working with his son, K. Rajesh Chowdhury, and his wife, a Sanskrit scholar, and went back to the classical books, realized that if a Mul Trikona sign falls in an inauspicious house, an unfavorable house called a Dustan Bhava, then that ruler would be causing trouble for that chart. Mul Trikona sign takes precedence. So the three unfavorable houses are the 6th, 8th, and 12th houses, called Dustan Bhavas. Planets going into the 6th, 8th, and 12th become weak. But if a Mul Trikona sign falls in the 6th, 8th, or 12th, then the ruler of that sign becomes a first-rate, functional, malefic planet and will cause adverse effects. By the way, people are working things out this lifetime where their Mul Trikona signs are placed. I think Professor Chowdhury once said that nobody ever came to see him over a 30-year period of time for a non-Mul Trikona sign issue. So if you want to know where you are working things out this lifetime, take a look at your Mul Trikona signs. So these are 1, 4, 5, 6, 7, 9, and 11. Aries for Mars, Cancer for Moon, Leo for the Sun, Virgo for the Mercury, Libra for the Venus, Sagittarius for the Jupiter, and Aquarius for Saturn. So all Cancers are working things out relative to the 10th house of career, the first house of self, second house of wealth, status, speech, and continuation of family life, third house of independence, self-expression, mental development, communications, entrepreneurial ventures, fourth house, childhood, parents, property, fixed assets, domestic peace. The sixth house, that's health, mental state, finances, conflicts, disputes, litigation, bankruptcy, divorce. It's called Ari, enemies. Eighth house, ancient knowledge, research, going deeply into knowledge, but it's also connected with accidents, death-like experiences, addictions. So for the Cancer rising sign, this sixth house ruler, Guru, Jupiter, is a functional malefic planet. It can bring a lot of stress. And the eighth house ruler, Shani, Saturn, not good. It's the most malefic planet for a Cancer rising sign. Now another building block or two, and then you'll see how this all fits together. This number up here, 17 degrees, 15 minutes of Cancer, is not an arbitrary number. 0 to 30 is possible in every house. This number changes every 4 minutes of the day. It's very specific to the exact time of a person's birth. It's such an important number. This is called most affecting point of every house. Any planet in any house close to this number will have an impact in the house it occupies, but it activates the houses that planet aspects. All planets cast an aspect 7 houses from where they sit, but some planets have additional aspects. Rahu Ketu aspect 5, 7, and 9 houses away. Jupiter aspects 5, 7, and 9 houses away. Mars 4, 7, and 8 houses away. Saturn 3, 7, and 10 houses away. So they're activated if they're close to the most affecting point. Now Rahu Ketu at 27, 28 degrees are not on the most affecting point, so they do not bother the houses they occupy, but they have a serious impact in this chart. Rahu and Ketu both influence Mercury, and Rahu's 5th aspect is on Venus. Venus's wife, by the way. And Venus rules the 4th house of parents and childhood. It's in the 12th house of foreign lands. So And this is also separation. So his parents separated. His father ends up in California and his mother ends up in Canada, stays in Canada or something. But my point is that Rahu is an eclipse and Venus is women and its wife and its parents. It's also property. But Rahu is also the planet of addictions. It's operating at the 8th house, which is connected with addictions, but the 12th house is also connected with addictions and hospitalization, institutional life. So we would have advised him early on to wear a diamond gemstone or the mystical pendant, the Kavach, the strengthened Venus, and you would need to propitiate or honor. What we do for the planets that cause adverse effects, we do Bhuta Yagya, Bhoota, and Deva Yagya, Deva, Yagya, Yagya. It's simply translated as charities for other people on particular days of the week. That's Bhuta Yagya. And Deva Yagya would be the Vedic chants. You can listen to them or do morning prayers on those days of the week. So we would have to pacify Rahu and Ketu in this chart and strengthen Venus and Mercury. That would have been very helpful. But here's a big one right here. Saturn is within 2 degrees of the most effective point. So it actually technically afflicts the 10th house. And its 3rd, 7th, and 10th aspects are also causing adverse effects. And Saturn rules his 8th house. 8th house is also known as Randra, transformations, vulnerability, setbacks, disappointments, accidents, and death-like experiences. He had some of those. Saturn is also in his debilitation sign of Aries. He's utterly weak. And he's in a house that is afflicted. No matter he is doing the afflicting, the house is afflicted. So he's on fire. Saturn, of course, rules the 8th house, which is Ayushtan, the house of longevity. And Saturn is also the natural significator of longevity, Ayush Karaka. So this Saturn was causing trouble for him. Now it's interesting because Saturn gets the Drishti. He gets this 7th aspect of Chandra, the moon. So that supports Saturn. That helped Saturn. Moon rules the chart. It's in a very affluent sign of Libra, ruled by Shukra, by Venus. And Saturn runs for 19 years, June 93 through June 2012. We'll take a look at his 20 years of success. Well, I guess it was 10 years. I'm sorry, I can't count. 94 to 2004 is 10 years. But he was in Saturn when this began. He'd gone into double Saturn. It's in the house of career. It gets support from the moon, which is the public favor. The moon rules the chart. So it supports Saturn, but not completely. Because if you don't know the remedies, then you get the trouble sooner or later. But his 19 years of Saturn ran, and it had to do with his career. He had all kinds of success during his career, during Saturn. And then he did 17 years of Mercury, which is where he is, or where he was at the time of death. Mercury's in the house of wealth and status, but it's afflicted by both Rahu and Ketu in eclipse. And Moon ruling the chart gets this horrible affliction of Saturn, and the house where Moon is sitting gets afflicted by Saturn. So the Moon becomes utterly weak. And it's afflicted by the 8th house ruler of death-like experiences. Emotionally, depression. I'm glad that Jupiter's not at 17, 16, 15, 14, 13 degrees, because then it would cause trouble. It's benign. Its 5th, 7th, and 9th aspects are benign. Another reason he had success is because this is Surya in Simha, Sun in Leo. This is the multicone sign for Sun. So this gives tremendous power to the Sun to be in his own sign. But he's less than 5 degrees. That's called infant state and weak. So that can cause trouble with the stomach, digestion. I think he had some gastrointestinal problems during one of his addiction situation. That's the Sun, weak Sun. Yeah, pancreatitis, gastrointestinal, weak Sun. And Moon is also connected with the heart. So here's a case where somebody just does not have this knowledge. They don't know how to manage their situation. We would have done the twofold remedies: strengthen the 5 favorable planets, color therapy, gemstone therapy, mystical pendant, and propitiate or honor the planets causing adverse effects: Rahu, Ketu, and Shani, Saturn. We would have given them remedies for those things. Actually, just do it this way here. So this is his chart, where the planets were on the day of his birth. This inner circle is exactly the same chart. It's just a circular format of this. This allows us to overlay the transits of the planets in the outer circle. Always gives you a major clue. So if we do go back to just a couple of days ago, it was the 28th. He was found unresponsive. Okay, so the 28th is when he passed away. Notice that Rahu and Ketu were in what we call odd signs. Aries is number 1, Libra number 7. They were at 0 degrees. So take this Rahu, slide him over here at 0 degrees. So Rahu is not on the most effective point and not within 5 degrees of Saturn. But you take Rahu and put him here at 0 degrees. His 5th aspect, 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, is on top of the Sun. Doesn't bother Mercury or Ketu. His 7th aspect does not bother Moon, and 9th aspect is benign. Ketu at 0 degrees, 0 degrees, 0 degrees, 0 degrees, no problem. So it's just this one transit right here of Rahu on Sun, which is not good. That's why I think it was a heart attack. Sun is the heart, and Moon is the heart, and Moon is under the affliction of Saturn. But this is the one that really caught my attention right here. We've said that Saturn and Jupiter are both functional malefic planets for the Cancer rising sign. Now, they're slow moving. It takes Jupiter 12 months to go through a sign, and it takes Saturn 2.5 years to go through a sign. Rahu and Ketu get through a sign in about 18 months. So those are the 4 slow moving planets. So it does happen that Cancer rising signs, when they have trouble, that can be long-lived trouble, long-lived unhappy events. Well, look at this. Jupiter is retrograde. Retrograde planets, by the way, have to be viewed properly. Most people think, oh, Mercury's retrograde, I can't do anything. That's just not right thinking. The question really is a retrograde planet having some impact on another planet or vice versa? And what is their functional nature? Let's say Saturn and Jupiter were favorable for this chart. That would be a good transit. But this Jupiter retrograde, 17 degrees. Look, it's within 2 degrees of his Saturn at 15 degrees. It's a serious impact. And it was just not getting any better. And Jupiter rules the 6th house as mental tension and conflicts and disputes. And Saturn is Ayush Karaka, significator for longevity and his physical structure. Let's take a look at something here. Yeah, see, look at this. If we go back in time here, see, this has already happened before. Look at this. This is when the stress started coming in. So I think he got back into some trouble here. Here's Jupiter and Rahu conjunction. Not good. This is back late May this year. And look what happened after that. Jupiter started to separate from Rahu. But then it goes right over Saturn. So this is back in June. This is a very serious affliction and slow moving. There's Jupiter 12. Saturn is 15 in the natal chart. So that's applying. Middle of June. By the 1st of July, it's 100% affliction. It's mutual. Saturn's afflicting Jupiter, Jupiter's afflicting Saturn. Not good. So Jupiter pulls away, but you're going to see an R pop up. He gets about 4 degrees away. 5, maybe 6 degrees. But see, now it's coming back in September. Started coming back at him. So October, he's feeling this dark cloud coming over him. And closer and closer, look at that. And it wasn't going to go anywhere fast. So this is one of these prolonged, long-lived, unhappy events. And then he finally comes out of retrograde and goes back over it. So let's say that was long-lived, so he couldn't get through it. Anybody can take a 3-day fever, but you can't take a 3-month fever. And also this Jupiter at 17 degrees, sitting here in Aries, throws an aspect over 7 houses away. It's on top of Moon, ruling the chart. A lot of mental tension. And Jupiter rules health, so there was health issues. The Moon is also the heart, so I do believe they'll find out he had some kind of cardiac arrest. And then, of course, Shukra, Venus. Venus is sitting here at 24 degrees. Coming under the affliction of Rahu and Ketu. Sun ruling the heart is always debilitated in Libra from middle of October to middle of November every year. So you use a Mercury main period afflicted by Rahu and Ketu. We take the main period as general trend or riverbed of time. We take the Antardasha, the sub-period, as the general trend or riverbed. Rahu's an eclipse, sudden eclipse. And it was afflicting his natal sun. So I think what I'm pointing out is that it is just such an important thing to know what's going on in your chart at any given time. First off, how to strengthen your favorable planets, how to propitiate or honor the planets causing adverse effects. Sage Parashara says to honor those graha, those planets that are cause of adverse effects at any time, because Brahma has blessed the planets with the boon, with the instruction, do good to those who honor you. And he goes on to say that the entire creation and destruction of the universe is under the authority and administration of a Navagraha, the 9 planets. Therefore, they're most venerable. So he does say that planets can cause adverse effects. Some people say, oh, their planets are deities and they can't cause harm. Yes, they can, according to Sage Parashara. Planets have a functional nature and it changes for each ascendant, for each rising sign. So for one chart, actually for 3 rising signs, Saturn will cause trouble. But for 9 rising signs, Saturn will not cause trouble. Saturn only causes trouble for the Cancer, Virgo, and the Pisces rising sign. And it has to do with its Multricone sign falling in the 6th, 8th, or 12th house. We'll let that siren go by. But the same holds true for all planets. Same thing, Jupiter can cause trouble for 3 rising signs and will never cause harm for 9 rising signs. All the planets have the same principle. Jupiter will cause trouble for Cancer, cause trouble for Capricorn, and for Taurus. I see people wearing a yellow sapphire when they're a Cancer rising sign. No, never wear a yellow sapphire, and never wear a blue sapphire if you're Cancer. So, point is, everybody should be aware of which planets are favorable, which planets are unfavorable. Everybody should be aware of the twofold planetary remedies to strengthen their favorable planets and pacify or honor or propitiate planets causing adverse effects. Bhuta Yaga and Deva Yaga, the charities and the chants. So, Heyam Dukkam Anagatam. Avert the danger that is not yet come, or the danger in your chart. If we know what the problem is, we can manage it. My experience over the last 30 years is when people do these twofold remedies, they come out of their difficulties, or they have much more protection. This horoscope is called a reflection of one's Sanchita karma. It's the karma we are working out this lifetime. People don't have proper knowledge, so they meet with a destiny in the chart. And this karma can be quite overwhelming, 80, 90, 100% overwhelming, like a tsunami. But if you do the remedies, you'll notice that the karma becomes much more manageable. Problems are 30, 20, 10%. Much more manageable. We cannot get rid of that last 10%. Nobody can. Because that is the nature of life since the beginning of time. Challenges. Lord Buddha says the first noble truth is life is suffering. It just challenges. But the good news is that challenges are a conveyor belt of evolution. They wake us up to our divine self. So that's another subject altogether. But I hope this little reading for Matthew Perry will be helpful. Give you a little bit more of an understanding of how to read your chart, how to help others with their charts, and how to employ the planetary remedies. I wish you all the best in health, happiness, peace, and prosperity. Om Namah Shivaya and Jai Gurudev.